have 3 already. I have Mayor Chadwick, lateness, she's due in at 2:30. Councillor Kumar, shortly after 9. Councillor Maxwell, early departure at 2:30, and Councillor Rotorua Tate for lateness. So may I have a mover? And thank you, Councillor Gould. Thank you, Mrs. Trumper. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? Councillor Gould. Thank you for clarifying that, Councillor Gould. Okay, there are no further declarations of interest. Thank you, everyone. We'll now move on to staff reports, and this is... sorry, Eugene, didn't see you. Thank you.
Sorry, yes, just to confirm, one of the submissions that is in the pack is from Te Arawa River Iwi Trust, of which I'm the CEO.
Well, in that case, for that one, you may step back from the table, or are you going to be presenting that yourself?
No, as it turns out, we weren't planning to do a verbal submission, but I just wanted to note that we do have a submission in
the paper. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. No further clarifications there. All right. I think we'll move on to recommendation 1, which is the draft spatial plan feedback. That's on page 7. And I'm going to invite our first submitter up, which is Francis Louis. Francis, if you'd like to come and take a seat down the end. And I just remind submitters to turn your microphone on each time you speak. Sometimes they cut out. If there's a bit of a gap, each person has... we've given you 15 minutes this morning, Francis, if you need it. Most submitters will have 10 minutes. So please proceed when you're ready.
Morena, everybody. So I have limited language for te reo, but I am learning. Kia ora. How the government plans our space. The Fenton Agreement was our first spatial plan. It capitalised on this area's geothermal wonders. The spatial plan can be defined as the coordination of practices and policies affecting spatial organisation. To my knowledge, driving this is the Rotorua vision. To my knowledge, driving this Rotorua Vision 2030 is Mayor Steve Chadwick and Councillor Tania Tapsell. It's to my knowledge. As Rotorua is projected to grow 7.2% in the 10 years between 2013 to 2023, Council will now require 20% margin of land for this vision. My submission questions the methods and approaches used by the public and private sector as to where that land is coming from. If the Council is going to influence the distribution of people and activities, who will be forced to sacrifice their piece of papakainga for this vision? I would like the Council to keep me in touch as to where this land is coming from. Kia ora.
Thank you, Francis. I'll open for questions now, if anyone has any questions for Francis. Yes, Gina, thank you.
Kia ora, Francis. Ngā thank you for your submission, and it's not easy to come forward and do these sorts of things. So good on you. I think you raise a good point. It's a point we have ourselves asked: where's the land coming from? In the general scope of things, it tends, we look and we see Māori land, and I guess that's my question. Are you of the view that they were talking about is it your thought that this access of land will be the remaining Māori land in the district?
I'm very worried about it, Gina.
Yes, we do too. So thank you. I'm glad that you've raised that issue. It's an important one. So tēnā koe, Francis.
Kia ora, everybody.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for Francis? Oh, one more. Councillor Donaldson. Thank you, Francis.
Kia ora, Francis. I don't mean to be insulting, but I'm not sure. Do you understand that the spatial plan does not challenge mana whenua or does not challenge ownership of land? The spatial plan informs the district plan, which just sets rules on what can be done on certain blocks of land. And if you have any thoughts on that, we're happy to hear them.
When I started my talk, I said how the government plans our space, and I did mention first sentence, the Fenton Agreement. That's what my concern is.
Thank you, Francis. We would like a copy of that, if that's possible. Either we can photocopy it and give you one back. That's fine. We'll just get one of the staff, or Una will come and get that. Would you like a copy yourself kept?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. We'll arrange for that to happen. Thank you.
Oh.
Okay.
I'll be here till this finishes.
Okay, lovely.
Okay,
thank you. Thanks, Francis. That's very good. Our next speaker is Nairi Khan. Now, Nairi's not due till 9:20, and I don't believe she's here yet. So I'll just use this opportunity to have a cup of tea, refresh yourself with the other submitters if you haven't fully versed yourself with them, and we'll resume once Nairi turns up. Thank you. Welcome back everyone to our meeting. We're going to move on to page 21. Cole O'Keefe is here from the NZTA. He's just getting his papers sorted, so when he's ready we'll take a seat, please. Cole, thank you. And yes, just you may need to turn your microphone on each time you speak if you stop. There will be questions if you leave enough time after your 10 minutes, but please proceed. And sorry, a bell will ring at 5 just to give you a bit of a warning. Thank you.
Good morning all, my name's Cole O'Keefe. I'm a Principal Planning Advisor at the New Zealand Transport Agency. So I've been employed with the Transport Agency for 9 years, and I'm based in the Strategy, Policy and Planning Group, and based in the Tauranga office. So I'll start off with the role of the agency. So Transport Agency is a Crown entity with the sole powers of control for all purposes of state highways. Transport Agency is also a significant investor in the local road network. Transport Agency's objectives, functions, powers and responsibilities are derived from the Land Transport Management Act and the Govern Road and Powers Act. And the statutory objective of the Transport Agency is to undertake its functions in a way that contributes to an effective, efficient and safe land transport system in the public interest. Transport is a critical part of daily life for all New Zealanders, enabling a range of activities, making a significant contribution to New Zealand's economic growth and productivity. Effective transport enables travel to and from work, access to services, visits to family and friends, and allows businesses, regions and cities and towns to be productive and well connected. Recognising the importance of the land transport network, over $3 billion of New Zealanders' money is spent through the National Land Transport Fund each year. This investment is accompanied by a further $1 billion of local government investment. The Transport Agency is also an investor in the Council's local road network. Funding assistance rates are not subsidies but part of a co-investment system which recognises that there are both national and local benefits from investing in the land transport network. Approximately a third of the funding incorporated in the 2015 Government Policy Statement on Land Transport Funding involves investment undertaken jointly with local government. This includes funding of local roads, public transport, walking and cycling, safety promotion and system management. The GPS signals what central government wants to achieve in these joint funding areas. This enables local government to frame its investment plans to integrate with government's priorities while giving effect to their own statutory purpose. That purpose is to deliver infrastructure and services that meet the current and future needs of communities in the most cost-effective way for households and businesses. As an investor, the Transport Agency has a significant interest in seeing that land use planning for the city is integrated with the transport system. It also has an interest in the present and future land use decision making to ensure that the public receive value for money and national investment as signalled by the central government. This drives a beneficiary pays principle whereby those who benefit from new or improved infrastructure contribute investment towards it. The Transport Agency's direction focuses the organisation to effectively deliver on the transport sector goal for a transport system that maximises economic and social benefits for New Zealand and minimises harm. It also contributes to the government's wider priorities, providing modern infrastructure and services that support a more productive economy with more jobs, higher incomes and higher living standards. One of the agency's strategic responses to deliver on this direction is developing partnerships for prosperity. This is of particular importance to the Rotorua Spatial Plan development as this response aims to unlock social and economic opportunities for customers, businesses and communities through targeted partnerships and focusing on great transport links and services that promote improved social, economic and environmental outcomes. This supports the broad ambitions of central and local government to invest in ways that enable everyone in New Zealand to lead better lives. This means partnering with others and playing our role in creating connected and safe communities and a more productive economy that delivers more jobs, higher incomes and higher living standards for New Zealanders. Transport services and other activities will be more joined up as we support the plans of others to help improve lives and livelihoods. Firstly, thank you for the opportunity to provide feedback on the Rotorua Lakes Council's draft spatial plan. The Transport Agency would like to commend the Rotorua Lakes Council for developing the draft spatial plan. A spatial plan development process allows key partners to collaborate together to enable a shared understanding of the outcomes being sought and the associated evidence base. A collaborative approach promotes the integration of land use, transport and investment over the longer term. The Transport Agency supports spatial planning as a way of setting the strategic direction for how a city or district will grow, develop and change over time. In our experience, a collaborative spatial plan process enables key partners to work together to develop a shared understanding of the evidence base, outcomes being sought and the implementation program. In principle, the Transport Agency supports the community outcomes and future development strategic direction that the Council has set out in the draft spatial plan. The Transport Agency understands that the community outcomes which are set out in the draft spatial plan include build homes that match needs, create thriving neighbourhoods, enhance our playgrounds and environment, support iwi aspirations, and create a vibrant city heart. The agency is of the view that the spatial plan process presents an opportunity to partner with the Council and others to ensure that the transport system and other solutions enabled by our combined investment contribute to these outcomes and contribute to the wider community and economic outcomes needed. To facilitate this, it is suggested that an effective, enduring, outcome-based partnership is formed, which is underpinned by the shared interest that we can co-create and progress together. To be effective and eliminate misalignment, we would have one plan for the integrated transport system to support livability and community and economic outcomes for Rotorua. This plan would commit up to upfront effective sequencing, phasing and delivery of final form and system performance based on strategic alignment. Provide services and opportunities to customers from a clear understanding of targeted customer experiences and customer expectations, and the delivery of an integrated transport system meeting the needs of the community, visitors and businesses, and each mode playing its part. There are obvious additional partners we collectively need to identify and resolve if they have a role and purpose within the partnership. Evidence-based to support the planning investment of the Connect the Rotorua business case. The agency is, in collaboration with the Council, was making significant progress towards implementation of the short to medium term program for the Connect Rotorua business case, following the Transport Agency's board support in February 2016. We consider that the Connect Rotorua business case is a successful example of the benefits of a collaborative planning approach and the development of shared evidence. This work has enabled the agency and the Council to support a program including an initial package of improvements estimated at $24 million to support city centre revitalisation, regional economic growth, community accessibility and transport benefits. The board's support for any further investment in longer term programs beyond the current Connect Rotorua program was on the basis of the further investigations by the Council and the agency to form agreements on how future growth would be managed in Rotorua and accordingly confirmed through a spatial plan. The Transport Agency understands that the Burl High unrestricted projections have been used as the basis for the draft spatial plan. This projection varies significantly when compared to historical trends and other projections. Please see Appendix 1 for comparison. The Transport Agency needs to understand more in terms of the rationale for using this projection and in the future what influences are driving this projection. This will allow us to become more confident and certain in the projection in order to use it as a basis for joint decision making regarding investment. The Transport Agency, however, does recognise the recent growth occurring within the Rotorua district and also that Rotorua is expecting to be confirmed as a medium growth area under the National Policy Statement on Urban Development Capacity. The Transport Agency is currently working with other councils across the country on their NPS assessments. And given the standard of evidence required to support these assessments, the Transport Agency will give considerable weight to this evidence in providing certainty and confidence to make investment decisions. This evidence will also support decision making around staging and timing for development and infrastructure investment. In summary, the Transport Agency and Rotorua Lakes Council have a degree of strategic alignment already. Each organisation is capable of delivery, and we would like to now move towards an approach that takes the opportunity to create a greater combined value which includes taking a holistic and agreed approach to working together for the Rotorua community and economy. We look forward to actively working with the Council on the continued development of the draft spatial plan, the MPS assessments, and the future partnership and plan to support these. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Cole, I will actually open that for questions. Yes, Councillor Knowles.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Cole, you talk about the evidence base for growth projections, and I just wonder your view in terms of the growth of our district, which is, would you accept that climate change, the effects of climate change, particularly on low-lying regions of the region, is a factor that may influence and indeed accelerate growth in the Rotorua district?
Yeah, I accept that it may be a factor. I suppose there isn't enough research out there or studies that have been committed to suggest that that will drive projections. We've only recently had the report out from MFE, which talks about some of the impacts on some of the land areas. I think that's one area that we probably all need to undertake some work on and just figure out what impact that will have on some of the communities.
Yeah, I have some more questions. Mr. Berriman Camp, then Mrs. Mohi, and then Councillor Sturt.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. This is more solely for my information. You talked about transport infrastructure. I'm interested in whose responsibility is it in terms of future-proofing transport systems, in terms of EV charging stations and things like that? Is that an NZTA responsibility? Is that a council responsibility? I'm afraid I don't know.
Yeah, I'd say it's a joint responsibility. We're sort of leading the charge in terms of putting out some guidelines in terms of EV infrastructure and charging facilities, and I think it came out earlier this year, and I certainly know that we're quite active around the country trying to encourage new charging stations to be built and put in place.
Kia ora, Cole. A couple of questions. So you've talked about collaboration with key partners. Who are you referring to in the key partners statement?
Kia ora. I think it's all key stakeholders and also investors. So that's a range of government organisations, DHB, MB, all the key players that will be able to invest and contribute to achieving these outcomes, and especially iwi as well.
Oh, right. Cool. I was going to actually suggest that you add iwi to that list. They're very active in that space of joint collaboration and infrastructure. So do you have any examples of where you have collaborated with iwi at all?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we've got some examples. So Future Proof in the Waikato, where we have iwi involvement and all the key stakeholders that come along to that, and also Smart Growth as well over in Tauranga. So, yeah, they're more sort of local examples.
Great, that'll be helpful for us going forward. I guess my last point is just the Eastern Arterial left quite a bad taste in everybody's mouth here, and I guess that was very old practice of public works action taking land for to assist what we're talking about here. So I just wanted to ask, what happens when there's a need to have land for roading that isn't being voluntarily offered? What's the practice these days?
Yeah, so I know we try and get key stakeholders, landowners, interested parties in at a very early stage, and try and meet in the middle in terms of trying to find a solution for everyone. I know that we do rely on the Public Works Act sometimes when there's an absolute necessity for the infrastructure to support New Zealand and the local communities and those wider outcomes. I think since I've been at the agency 9 years, I've seen such a change over the years, and we do really try and get in there early now and meet with all parties and try and find a solution that supports everyone. Thanks.
Now, Councillor Sturt, is it an urgent question? Because we are actually starting to run late, I will close questions after that.
Just in relation to the draft spatial plan in your submission, you stated and others have said that yours is an evidence-based situation. You react to evidence-based and find solutions. But how long will it take you to get the evidence together to fix the Nongataha State Highway 5 roundabout? How long will that take, and how flexible and light on your feet are you to adapt to the changes that you signalled? I think your estimates on your Appendix 1 are already not up to date, and I think growth is really marching ahead. So with the medium of the spatial plan and working collaboratively, how light on your feet are you going to be to adapt to the changes that we are already experiencing in the last 12 months that you haven't even factored in yet?
Thanks. So the data at the Appendix 1 is the evidence we've been provided by the Council to support the spatial plan. In terms of the Nongataha roundabout, I'm of the understanding that investigation is to kick off earlier in the next year. We've been monitoring that with cameras and checking out the flows. There is for the next investment program coming into the next financial year. There's investigation on that roundabout program for that. In terms of the Eastern Corridor, we're already have the detailed business case underway, having a look at the longer term program for the Eastern Corridor that goes from Isles Road out to the airport. So that'll be able to give us an idea of what that longer term solution is to support the spatial plan, and then it'll just be a matter of seeing what the sort of timing is for that to occur.
And just finally, in number 16, I just wondered how current your information was on the medium growth area under the NPS.
So that was just my understanding of the last month that the council was going to move into the medium growth of NPS. Yeah.
We have had that confirmed.
Excellent.
We are definitely a medium growth area now. So we hope that you'll take that information back, because that will certainly impact on the planning going forward.
Definitely.
Yes, Councillor Kent, I'll let you. One question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very quick one. You've sort of cast some doubt on the Bureau figures that we've used in terms of what happens if things go chaotic. Which of the projections does Land Transport actually use in its current thinking for Rotorua?
Yeah, so we try and take a consistent approach across the country, and we tend to take the Statistics New Zealand projections. But we also consider other projections that the councils provide as well, as long as there's enough rationale for those projections, and there's some strong evidence that that projection will occur, then we're happy to consider other projections as well. But generally across the country we take a consistent approach of using the Stats NZ growth figures.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. O'Keefe, for that.
Great,
very
thank you.
full report, present submission you've given to us. I'd now like to ask Greg Brown down, please, and that's on page 23. And Greg, you're familiar with using our microphones, and you have 10 minutes. Lovely. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just introduce myself to those of you that don't know me. As Madam Chair said, my name is Greg Brown. I own 2 businesses in Rotorua, CBD, the Pig and Whistle and Capers. I'm also a landowner at Okaraka. I have 120 acres there, primarily forestry and regenerating native, but also some bare land, and I wish to talk to you partly on that and the CBD primarily. But first of all, I'd like to say congratulations on this document. Everybody that put some effort into that should be congratulated. It's very, very good in my mind. In the 2030 vision, it talks about defining our district strengths and our opportunities, and we need your feedback, and that's why I thought I'd take the time to do what I've done, come here. So partly what's missing from that potentially is risks. What are the risks going forward? And no doubt everyone's taking that very seriously. On the way to taking my daughter to school this morning, I noticed a young fella running backwards talking to his mate, a big backpack on, who's a little guy, running backwards like this, and I thought, I wonder if he understands the risks of what he's taking there. You know, I could just see him taking a tumble. And I wonder whether we're doing something similar sometimes in the way we plan. Are we looking backwards to look forward? And maybe we're all guilty of that. But I think the 2 things that I'd like to talk about is I've put a support submission in for development in Okaraka. I understand that there are some that would object to that on environmental grounds, and in fact I think that's really why I was supportive of some development subdivision in Okaraka. Some time ago, I'm not sure whether you would all remember, Crater Lake Farm was rezoned primarily on environmental grounds. The nutrient budget that went with that farm was going to be given up and turned into houses. Most of you probably know that that didn't happen for various reasons, but I think that's really what we're talking about here. If we can give up some land use that has a nitrogen budget or nutrient budget attached to it, then there is environmental gains. We're not going backwards. I think we're going forwards if it's done right. And I think the thing that's missing in the spatial plan, which I think was in a previous version, was that Okaraka, any development in Okaraka would need to keep the community feel. And I support that. I think if it's done right and thought about, and you're not making it, you're not changing it, the shape, well, you're changing the shape of it somewhat, but you're not changing the character of it. And I think that's the key thing that you're looking for. So you're getting benefits from environmental gains from removing nutrient budget. But also, I think going forward, and this is the bit and it was a nice segue from the previous submitter about, you know, we're a medium growth city. I'm not sure that's the right term, but we can see development. And one of the things that I've challenged staff around, you got the Queenstown property press, and that property press is full of lifestyle choices. You got the Rotorua property press, and most of it's not that appealing for people who are coming into town for lifestyle. So I think, again, done right at Okaraka and other places around, and the spatial plan looks at very good opportunities, I think, in terms of offering lifestyle. You know, I've heard a number of times, I think that's potentially decreased recently, of people coming here looking for something to buy for a lifestyle, not finding anything and leaving and going to Tauranga. Well, you know, I think that's not right. I think we've made some changes in that respect, and there are some choices now, so that's, you know, well done, council. Moving forward, I think Okaraka is an opportunity for us to seriously consider. The other thing I'd like to talk about is the CBD, if I may. In conversations with certain councillors, I get the impression there's no plan going forward. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. My gut feel is that I'm not. We've got ad hoc development going on around the CBD, the pocket park outside, or whatever you call it, the car parks that are being given up outside the cafe in Titanikai Street is an example of that. How does that fit with an overall plan? I don't see it. I'd like to put together a group, and I've been talking to the Chamber and a number of CBD retailers and other interested parties that I think could add value, about putting a new sector group together, and I've talked to Mike Steiner and he nods his head, so he'd be happy to support it, to look to develop a 5 to 10 year development plan. Is that 5 or 10? 5. Because I think there's an opportunity. We're faced with a risk, and that's online retailing. You read the papers. Amazon's moved into Australia. It's really challenging for retailers. We've got to be doing things smarter and differently. We can't keep doing the same things. What we've done so far is really good. Love the sculptures. Love the city focus. Te Manawa change. Really, really smart stuff. Where to next? And that's what I'd like to get into. Just so I'm signalling that we're going to do it. We'd like to get council on board as a key partner around that, and any other people who want to play. And really that's it. And I saw this in the paper yesterday, Attenborough, we've turned our oceans into toxic soup. Are we looking at the right stuff? I'm not sure that we are. Rotorua, I think, has a place to play. The nutrients that we put into our waterways end up down the Kaituna and straight into the ocean. I've got some plans, and I've talked to JP about those and others. I think we can be proactive in making a difference in there. I've talked to Nikki Douglas at Tiara Lakes, and she's plugging some of that sort of stuff into the marae around the lake. So, that's where I'm going to be putting my energy going forward. Kia ora.
Thanks very much, Greg. I'll open that for questions. Councillor Gould has a question, and then Councillor Tapsell.
Thank you, Greg, for your submission this morning. Do you, as a landowner at Lake Okeraka, do you believe you've got the right to develop the land if you've got spare land?
Well, currently I have no rights, no. Is it a good idea? Potentially, if it's done right. Okeraka residents are feeling the pressure. Blue Lake Tikitapu was closed on the weekend. Lake Okeraka was a zoo, didn't see it coming. We were going to use our boat, and we did, but man, there were a lot of people using that lake because Tikitapu is busy. We've got the motor camp around where the old ski camp was. That's getting a lot of use, so we're seeing a lot of campers go through the village. Boys Beach, now that's under co-governance, is really strongly used, and that's great. Where does too much development come in? I don't know. That's a serious question to ask ourselves. I think particularly in what Fenella's planning or suggesting, it's out of the way, out of sight. Same with the piece of land that I have. But we have no rights. We don't want to upset the community. I'm not going to die in a ditch over it, but there's an opportunity, I think.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Greg, for your submission. I greatly appreciate you, the experience that you bring with this. The question that I had was about your response in Creative Vibrant City Heart to you fully supporting the creation of residential activity on the fringes facing our green spaces. Just if you could perhaps elaborate on that a little bit more on what green spaces is, bearing in mind the significant cost of crucial infrastructure if we were to go too far out and have to put in wastewater treatment plants for them as well.
Thank you, Councillor. This discussion's been going around for a while, and some of the councillors at this table we've disagreed quite strongly, but I don't see residential in the interior of the CBD. Stuart Brown is a landlord in town. He had me in the back of the old Mackenzie's building. I don't know, they're behind Pumpkin Patch above where Gould's was, pointing out the back into an alleyway saying, oh, we could put an apartment in here. And I'm looking out the back looking at rubbish bins and air conditioners. How is that appealing? I said, well, who's going to buy here? I said, well, I certainly wouldn't. So, that's one end of the spectrum. The other is, the apartments looking forward towards the lakefront. Green space, nice outlook, offers a quality of life in my mind. Kurau Park development there, down the side. So, selective spots. You've got to think about the lifestyle choice that it offers, and looking at dumpsters and air conditioners is not appealing in my mind. So, green spaces, I agree with what this is suggesting.
Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bit of a leading question, I suppose, Greg, but in terms of the inner city and your proposal to haul together a committee, What do you think about the idea of council creating a CCO, an urban development agency, to get some commercial size and scale into a complete, I guess, getting the ball rolling on inner city development?
Well, it's about the quality of the decisions, ultimately, who's on it and who's leading it. Are there any vested interest, conflicts of interest? You know, some of the developers I don't agree with. You know, Kmart needed to go where Kmart's gone. But yeah, whatever structure is most appropriate. I envisage bringing lots of people and distilling lots of ideas and trying to get some consensus. I also see, you know, there's potential for a targeted development fund. I personally wouldn't mind paying a little bit extra on my business rates if we're going to keep making the sort of improvements we have been making, and we've got a coherent and understandable, logical, exciting development plan going forward. So whatever vehicle is most appropriate.
Thank you very much, Greg. That's the end of questions. We're out of time. Thank you very much for your thorough submission, and it certainly stimulated some good discussion for us. Thank you. Our next submitter is Leonard Sargent from Homingi 3 Trust, and that's on page 26. It's not Leonard, it's Tyra, sorry. Please introduce yourself. Thank you. Kia ora, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, kia ora tātou. My name is Taira Witchman. I'm speaking on behalf of the Homingi No. 3 Trust from Rotorua. Unfortunately, Mr. Leonard Sargent couldn't be here today. He's the chairman of our trust, and so I'm just speaking on behalf of the trust in his place. The Homingi No. 3 Trust is, we own 12 properties in central eastern Rotorua. Our biggest property, which many of you may know, is the Rotorua Sports Ground, formerly known as Emery Park, soon to be known as Homingi Park. So we own that property, and we own every other property north towards the lake. And so in total there's 12 properties, 9 lakefront properties, and 2 other properties just north of the sports ground. Our trust has played a big part in the community, fundamentally with the sports ground, provision of the sports ground and an affordable lease for the community. We also support the 2 local marae, Punawhakareia, which is just across the road from the sports ground, and Rotorua marae, which many of the councillors who have been on our meetings know where that is. We also support a number of our shareholders with kaumātua grants and health grants. So we spent about last year we spent about $120,000 supporting the marae and the sports ground. So we're a medium-sized trust with assets that roughly in the area of, say, $14 million. At the moment, we don't invest any money in the Rotorua. We invest in shares all over the place, but at the moment we don't actually invest in the Rotorua, and we would like to do that. We'd like the opportunity to do that. So 3 aspects in relation to the spatial plan that I'm keen to discuss, we'll quickly go through, is the support for iwi aspirations, creating a thriving neighbourhood and lakeside communities, and infrastructure. Most of what the iwi trusts out in the Rotorua are looking for at the moment, and a lot of this comes off the back of the wastewater treatment scheme. We've played quite an integral role in that, and for many of us, and myself included, it's a first, and it's actually got us interested in council processes and in building the community. Our trust, there's 5 new trustees in the last 18 months, and we're trying to change our focus to, again, building a community, which was the vision of the original trustees when it came to providing the land for the sports ground, and to be able to reconnect and maintain the connections our owners have with Rotorua. And we'd like to consider that, given that the land that we own, that if the council and the community are looking at a central hub for Rotorua, for the eastern southern side of Rotorua, that our lands might play a part of that in the future. All of our income is generated from leased property. As I said, well, our property, your latest valuations for 9 of our properties has gone from $300,000 in 2006 to 1.3 million today, and we need to be able to do something different with those properties for the benefit of our landowners and the benefit of the community. At the moment, we're most probably returning 1% on land value, and that gets heavily questioned by not just the trustees but the landowners and the community. So we most probably got, if you're looking at a community hub for Rotorua, our lands most probably provide an ideal spot for that. And an important part to that is the wastewater treatment scheme. And I know Stavros will be coming begging in the end of February for your guys to sign off on aspects of it, and we certainly hope you do, and a lot of the other trusts in the area certainly hope we do. So when it comes to the aspirations for our community, we have a sports ground which sometimes looks like a farming paddock. There's I know the council, as far as I understand, council maintain that ground. There's a small play area for kids. There isn't a toilet there unless the club's open. But we see that, 5 minutes? Yeah, so, we'd just like that aspect of it for the benefit of the community to be enhanced in the future. And with infrastructure, the important parts of infrastructure for us is primarily wastewater, then electricity, and then, what's that one? Electricity and roading. Rotorua this year was shut off for a few days with these heavy rains that we tend to get more often. We expect that to happen again next year. We hope that in the long term council will support an alternative, more resilient route that gives us access to Rotorua. And I'm sure a number of the iwi trusts will be very supportive in trying to look for solutions on that. So one of the things that's important to us is when the wastewater treatment scheme is implemented, that there is an opportunity to look at the district plan, to look at the ways that we can utilise our land more efficiently, more effectively. Obviously for us it's about getting a better return for our shareholders, but that all translates into building a better community in Rotorua. Yeah, so that's basically the background of my presentation, or our trust presentation.
Thank you, Taira. I'll just open that for questions. Councillor Sturt, do you have a question?
Thank you for your submission today. Can you just paint the picture for me? I know the Rotorua Sports Club very, very well, refereed yes. Out there many, many years. But your land, your trust land, is that on the telephone exchange Gisborne Point end, or is it between the ground and the lake?
It's between the ground and the lake. Yeah. So if you went from Te Mahuia Road to that...
around the back.
Yeah, it goes all the way. So it's pretty much the width of the sports ground right through to the lake.
And how hamstrung are you in terms of existing leases? Are they with iwi people, or are they... No,
the existing leases are with the general public. And we're looking for options in the future whenever that may be. So we've some properties have 27 years left on their lease, but whether those are fulfilled or not is another question. But
so are you looking for, from a trust point of view, a 2030 vision in terms of where you can head long term?
Well, we're also looking at potential for buying some of those properties back. Like we have to consider investing in the community, and so if it's more beneficial for us to consider purchasing those leases back if an opportunity arises, then if there is potential for growth in Rotorua, then would certainly give us an option.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Welcome, thank you very much. That appears no other questions, so thank you very much, Tara. Thank you for your time. Our next speaker is Ms. Emery, and that's on page 30, and that's the Waitea Ho'aho Trust, I imagine. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa, e mihi ake ana ki a koutou I te atanei, kua whakarite I tēnei wā mō te hāpuri me te iwi hei kōrero ki a koutou, e pāna ki ngā whakaritenga mo te whenua o te rā mo te rohe nei o Rotorua. Ko wai tēnei e mihi ake nei ki a koutou, ko wai tia Hoaho Emery, he uri ahau no Ngāti Pikiao, no Ngāti Whakaue, Ngāti Te Roro, Te Rangi o te rā no ngā pū manawa e waru o te aroa katoa. I tēnei wā tonu e mahi ana hau I wainganui a koutou e pāna ki tētahi o ngā hōtaka e whakahaerengia nei e koutou. Morena everybody, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Waitea Hoaho Emery. I'm not Pare Merito from Te Runanga o Ngāti Pikiao, but I am representing Te Runanga o Ngāti Pikiao this morning, who submitted the submission to the spatial plans. Pare and Hakopa, the chair of the board, cannot be here this morning. My connection to Te Runanga o Ngāti Pikiao is that the Runanga represents all of the iwi around Lake Rotorua, and Maurea. I'm from Te Tākinga Marae at Maurea, and we are represented on the board. I'm a cultural and education consultant, and I've done work with Ngāti Pikiao Runanga on their education strategy, and also written a series of readers for E Roto I Te Reo Māori me Te Reo Tauiwi, bilingual readers for schools in Rotorua. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. So I guess this submission by Te Runanga o Ngāti Pikiao is an overarching submission, whereas, likes of Taira and other members of other trusts have spoken specifically for their areas. This is an overarching one, overarching kōrero, and so really it's about growth and development out at Rotoiti, but not only there, also at Rotoehu and Rotomā, because our Ngāti Pikiao iwi and Ngāti Mākino iwi span all of those lakes. And as you probably know, the iwi have extensive land interests around the lakes, and that there's great potential and plans already underway for development of that whenua. And so some of that's around housing, about papakainga, social housing, housing for the elderly, private housing as well. So I guess for me, what I really want to just say today is that we'd like to be involved in the planning around that, and I guess this is one of the initial parts of that, and to develop some collaborative relationships with the council so that we're in the conversations from the beginning and not brought in somewhere along the way when conversations and plans have already begun to take place, and that we're also involved in the monitoring and in forward planning. So I currently work with Stavros and Taira in the infrastructure team, Water Solutions, as the cultural impacts manager for the Rotoiti Rotomā Sewerage Scheme, and I'd just like to use that work as an example for how we can develop more collaborative relationships. So our mahi, we've got a team of people, and our mahi is to have input into the cultural management of the scheme, and as well as that to have our technical engineer experts to also be involved in the plans of the wastewater treatment plant and the reticulation. And so we've had a bit of a bumpy road, but I think that we've got quite a good way in understanding each other, and Stavros has been very open to listening to us and to enabling input into a lot of factors to do with the Rotorua sewage scheme. So I think it's quite a good model that could be used for other projects. I know that there are quite a number of other projects taking place with iwi, between iwi, and so they probably have some good things happening there. So we're very interested in developing private-public partnerships and in actioning out the Housing Accord and Special Housing Act in Section 22, which allows for changes in the way that iwi our councils can work with iwi, and also with the Resource Management Act changes in April this year about Māori participation in resource management and effectiveness of that resource management. Because at the day, like Taylor said, we want to develop our community further, our communities further, and to be able to just maximise the potential that's there and that's untapped at the moment. One of the things that we didn't like about the spatial plan was that it described our area as a playground, and we don't see it as a playground. And it's the place where whānau hapu iwi have lived for generations and generations. There are significant historical sites. There have been significant historical events that have happened there. It's our food basket, and it's a place where we maintain our cultural, our tikanga and our cultural practices. So yes, it's more than just a playground, although we do love to go swimming in the lake. So what else can I say here? We'd like to see development of public amenities and explore more opportunities for tourism. At the moment there's a focus group that's been established where tourism is being discussed. The infrastructure, for example, the Rotorua sewage scheme is really important because that's going to be the thing that enables all of this to happen. So we need to ensure that the capacity of that scheme can meet the demands of the spatial planning. What else can I say? Oh, also just about roading. It would be really good to investigate how the road might be able to be taken away from the lake side, because you know, if you take for example at Rotorua there, the road just goes straight in front of everybody's papakainga, and if we're going to have more development in the area, then there's going to be more traffic, and so it might be a good idea to try and move the road away from there, have a bypass. I think that's all I've got to say at the moment. Kia ora.
Oh, I'll open that up for questions. Mr. Berriman Camp.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Tēnā kōrua, thank you for your presentation. My question is gaining, what I've heard is the Runanga and Ngāti Piki land trusts certainly want to be an active part and an active player, not only in the planning but also potentially in the funding of that planning and the return of that. What I don't have a grasp of is, and I don't know if you're able to answer, of the area around the 3 lakes, how much would you say would be under iwi control? 10%, half percent?
80 or 50?
At least 50%. Yeah. I'm one of the other trusts I'm involved with. Yeah, we have 430 hectares, just like the Waione, just around the Rotorua Bay, and the adjoining properties south of us is all Māori Trust. Yeah, and then you got Rotorua 15, Rotorua 1.
So it's more than 50.
Yeah. I'm new to this.
So thank you for that. And yeah, my question was more to enable me to get a bit of a grasp, because we all know the impact that Pēkehā and the Trust have out there, but I wasn't able to quantify that, so thank you.
Kia ora. Thank you, Ms Mohi, and then Councillor Maxwell.
Tēnā korua. Nā mihi kia korua mo tēnā kōrero. Ai, whakarihira kia hau. Ai, tēnā koe. So my question, I'm just going through the Rotorua Housing Code and looking at some of the provisions that you've pointed out, and just wondered if you had some view on how such a influential grouping could have play a part in that accord. You know, there's the one statement, the council work with iwi to explore options for development of public kāinga. So I'd be really interested in getting some view about how you would like to see that occur. Yeah.
Your microphone on, please. Thank you.
The council has already engaged in a number of conversations with different iwi groups, and I think one of the things that I read in the Housing Accord was about getting some consistency across how those engagements take place, and so it's probably building on what is already there and getting a more streamlined process perhaps, because you know, usually those groups of people who are in the iwi, who are iwi representatives, they will be involved with the trusts and with the whatever developments they might be thinking of for their whenua, for our whenua. So I think we have to utilise what we've already got in place rather than just creating a whole new thing, but that there might be a particular role assigned to that.
And final question, Councillor Maxwell.
Tēnā korua.
Morena.
Ngā whanaunga o Ngāti Pēkehā. Tēnā korua. Very good presentation, both of them that we've received this morning, and pleasing to see thinking outside the square. The question I have, and I think it would be a big help for your area, is you touched on a bypass, and I'm trying to think, where would that be? Have there been some options come up somewhere in all your discussions with people who have land out there? Where would a bypass be thought of that we might be able to help with?
Might be on Tater's whenua.
Yeah, I think part of it started early this year, the discussions around it when it came to the Waionia property. So that's where the tip of Waionia is, where you have the hairpin corner, and we thought it would be advantageous actually connect through to the back of our lands. And then in discussions, basically because a lot of us are working on this wastewater treatment scheme, discussions we had about, hey, that someone said in the past there was a proposal to put a road around the back of Rotorua, and then you'd look at Rotorua differently. You know, you'd look at a bypass road and people coming into the bays pretty much like they had in Kinloch and Taupo. So the discussions, there have been a number of discussions, but yeah, and that's the sort of view that we've got. So it'll be going through what areas where currently there's forestry, and then snipping down to each of the bays or to the main centre of Rotorua.
Thank you, Taira and Waitea Ho'aho. Thank you very much for your presentation today. Now, our next submitter is Christine Coe, who is speaking for Martin Coe, and that you have been distributed that sheet, and I'll just ask that Christine come and join us at the table. Thank you, Christine. You have 10 minutes. You'll get a little bell at 5 minutes. I keep forgetting to tell everyone. And then after Christine, we are going to break for a 10-minute morning tea break. Thank you. and just turn the purple button. That lovely. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Christine Koi aho. I'm speaking on behalf of Martin Koi from Acacia Road, Lake Okaraka. He has been associated for 60 years with Lake Okaraka, and his family purchased land from the first subdivision of Lake Okaraka over 70 years ago. He has been himself a landowner for 35 years. He has a very deep love and association with Lake Okaraka and the Tarawera Lakes area. He had childhood days there on the lake. Wonderful environment in which to roam over unspoiled countryside, indigenous, farmed, swimming, walking, climbing. It was a privilege for him to grow up in this outstanding natural landscape and to bring his children up to enjoy and appreciate the depth of the beauties of Rotorua in this landscape. But he was very aware what a fragile environment it is. Flooding, severe flooding twice, once recently and once previously in 1962, when he took his outboard motor and motored round houses in Steep Street. The only obstacle was the fences and the propeller, and he managed to even circumnavigate those. He's watched water degradation. He's watched amoeba that you could actually see swimming in the water. He's watched the weed grow. He's watched the animals defecating, the geese, the swans defecating, uncontrolled and flowing into the water, contaminating the water. He's watched weed management, harvesting, phoslock, spraying. He's watched slicks of oil on the lake from boats that visit. He's watched the expansion of the loop road on the northwestern side of the lake, the subdivision, the lifestyle blocks, the erosion, the sedimentation down the wash and into the lake. He's watched the road ceiling, the street lights, the loss of community as it's grown, the loss of beauty and identity as a community. He's opposed to the references in the draft spatial plan in relation to land available for housing at Lake Okaraka. The draft spatial plan on page 19 shows development potential at Lake Okaraka, labelled now. It is on sensitive, ecological and visually sensitive land. It's an area identified in the DOC and also in the Regional Council as being of high ecological sensitivity. This is where the spatial plan identifies urban housing and community to be located on Plains Farm as the farm is potentially closed down. It's ill-conceived, it's inappropriate, it's unsustainable. He submits that it should be removed from the plan. The reasons are that such development would require significant infrastructure investment, roading, locally and into town, more traffic, more cars, more noise, more air pollution. Not safe for children, not safe for the rural environment that small communities enjoy, that is being enjoyed at Lake Okaraka. The stormwater discharge into the lakes with sediment, and stormwater management techniques aren't 100%. The estimate is that they're 75% foolproof. They never provide for that massive deluge where there's overflooding and runoff into the lake, which there are none of those at Okaraka. It's all stormwater straight into the lake currently. There's visual pollution, light pollution, no longer those dark nights and the stars. Water pollution from sedimentation, breakdown of community. The new housing will be for the rich. The land value will be high. it'll be empty half the time. Open in the summer, maybe the blinds will be open, maybe they're offshore owners, but it won't bring community to a karaka. It will reduce community and impose huge negativities into the local environment. He's also opposed to the community centre there. The local shop closed 10 years ago or so. Rotorua is only 10 minutes drive away. No one knows where the idea came from that this area be developed for housing and for community facilities. There hasn't been adequate consultation. He's not met one person who knows or supports who's spoken out and why it's suddenly escalated into the plan. I understand that the local community group, Loka, of which the membership has not been consulted, yet they are presenting, so they have submitted and are presenting, representing the community. There's been no consultation either from Loka within the wider community. The change will be irreparable. The sense of community and environment will be heavily reduced. And this is the treasure of the Rotorua Lakes. The council must be proactive in environmental protection of this very, very special area. Please remove it from the spatial plan. That's my submission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Coe. Now I'll open that for any questions, if there are any around the table. Yes, Councillor Tapsell.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your passionate submission and being here on behalf. I just wanted to ask the question because the Lakes Community Board, of which I'm a member of, has been out to Mokarika for doing workshops about the spatial plan to get feedbacks, and I'm just curious about it's the Objective 6 Grow Jobs feedback that states keep the population away from these highly desirable recreation areas and area for passive relaxation, as well as opposing any additional community facilities. In those statements, are you referring to Rotorua locals, or are you referring to visitors in general?
I'm referring to the Lake Okaraka community, which needs to be kept small and community focused. It is the lungs and heart of residents in Rotorua. They can come, they can enjoy the environment, but they can bring their own food, they can bring their own picnics, but not expect to purchase at a supermarket or a dairy or coffee. Keep it simple.
Thank you. There appear no other questions. Thank you very much for that, Christine. I know you'll be presenting a bit later on again your own submission.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we are now going to take a 10-minute break or 15-minute break, and I appreciate, Fred, that we are running a little, well, we're not quite late yet, but we will be. So we will make it a very quick tea break. Thank you.